40 Americans are among hundreds infected with the new coronavirus on a cruise ship quarantined off Japan, a U.S. official said, after other Americans on board left for chartered flights home.
Armed robbers who stole hundreds of toilet rolls were being hunted by Hong Kong police in a city racked by shortages caused by coronavirus panic buying.
And the IMF had said the coronavirus epidemic could damage global economic growth this year, but a sharp and rapid economic rebound could follow.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. The death toll from China's new coronavirus epidemic jumped to 1,770 after 105 more people died, according to the National Health Commission. More than 70,500 have now been infected nationwide by the virus, which first emerged in December in central Hubei province before spreading across the country. Chinese authorities have placed about 56 million people in Hubei and its capital Wuhan under quarantine, virtually sealing off the province from the rest of the country, an unprecedented effort to contain the virus. New cases outside of the epicenter have been declining for the last 13 days. There were 115 fresh cases outside the central province, according to the commission on Monday, sharply down from nearly 450 a week ago. Monday's figures for new cases were around 100 higher than those on Sunday, but still sharply down on those from Friday and Saturday. A spokesman for China's National Health Authority said that the slowdown was a sign the outbreak was being controlled. However, World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has warned it is impossible to predict which direction this epidemic will take.
The first plane carrying U.S. citizens evacuated from a quarantined cruise ship in Japan landed at Travis Air Force Base in California late Sunday. The charter flight touched down around 11:29 p.m. at the base 40 miles northeast of San Francisco. The passengers will be quarantined at the base for 14 days. Dr. Fauci said that the reason for that is that the degree of transmissibility of that cruise ship is essentially akin to being in a hot spot. A second flight carrying the rest of the more than 300 U.S. citizens and family members evacuated from the Diamond Princess cruise ship was shortly due to land at another base in San Antonio, Texas. Evacuees from Japan cruise ship, 14 passengers had returned positive tests for the new coronavirus shortly before the flights departed Japan and were transported in an isolated part of the aircraft, the State Department said. Some Americans on the ship, however, declined the government's offer. They preferred to wait until the ship quarantine comes to an end on February 19.
Meanwhile, 40 Americans are among hundreds infected with the new coronavirus on the cruise ship quarantined off Japan, according to a U.S. official, after other Americans on board left for chartered flights home. Now, the Diamond Princess was placed in a 14-day quarantine in early February after a former passenger tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. But U.S. authorities announced on the weekend they would offer American passengers the option to leave the ship and fly home, where they will face another 14-day isolation period. More than 36 Americans are not going home, however. Dr. Anthony Fauci, a senior official at the National Institutes for Health, said that 40 of them have gotten infected and they're going to be in hospitals in Japan. It wasn't immediately clear whether the 40 Americans were among the figure of 355 people from the ship, which Japanese Health Minister Katsunobu Kato earlier on Sunday said were infected.
16 more Filipinos aboard a quarantined Diamond Princess cruise ship in Yokohama, Japan, tested positive for the coronavirus disease or COVID-19, bringing the total number to 27, the Department of Foreign Affairs said. The Philippine government is ready to provide them with other forms of help aside from the assistance provided by their employers. The Philippine Embassy in Tokyo remains in close coordination with relevant Philippine and Japanese government agencies, representatives of the World Health Organization, and Princess Cruises to ensure that the needs of the Filipino crew and passengers are met and to facilitate their eventual return to the Philippines. Possible repatriation will need clearances from the Japanese government.
Actually, dun ho sa confined space na yon, we are considering that all of these people would be considered for quarantine once they come back, ang ating mga repatriates. Kung ano po yung kino-consider ngayon ng Interagency Task Force as a facility for them to be quarantined, pag-uusapan pa po. Ngayong hapon po, may technical working group meeting regarding this matter, and tomorrow there would be this high-level Interagency Task Force meeting to have this discussion and hopefully have magkakaroon tayo ng final agreement. They are being regularly tested, no? That's part of their monitoring. Pero yung bago sila pumunta, bago mag-disembark or pumunta or ma-repatriate sila, meron ho silang protocol. We are considering everything so that we can properly manage po pagdating nila dito kung ano po ang dapat para naman ma-minimize natin din yung risk natin na makakapag-transmit sila sa iba kung sakasakali. At present, 453 patients under investigations have tested negative for the 2019 novel coronavirus, and there are only 22 cases with pending test results.
Over 100 German nationals were Sunday released from a quarantine at a military base near Frankfurt Airport 2 weeks after flying in from the Chinese city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the deadly coronavirus outbreak. Now, Secretary of State for Health Thomas Gebhardt told a press conference that, quote, all the people concerned have been allowed to leave the quarantine zone and rejoin their families. None of them was contaminated by the virus, which has killed more than 1,700 people, the vast majority in China. They arrived in Frankfurt Airport by plane along with more than 20 passengers, mainly Chinese, on February 1 after being delayed when Russia refused to let the plane land and refuel. Their 2-week quarantine period was spent at the military base at Germersheim, 120 kilometers from Frankfurt. Germany is the European country with the most people infected with the COVID-19 strain, with 16 cases confirmed but no fatalities. The only coronavirus death in Europe to date was that of an 80-year-old Chinese tourist in France.
Taiwan reported its first death from the new coronavirus Sunday as the global death toll surpasses 1,770. A 61-year-old man from central Taiwan with underlying health problems but no recent overseas travel history died in hospital on Saturday after testing positive of the virus, officials confirmed. It is the 5th recorded death outside mainland China. Previous victims were in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Japan, and France. Health and Welfare Minister Chen Shih-chung said this latest case was an unlicensed taxi driver. His main clients were people who had been to China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Chen said authorities were examining the driver's client list and their travel history in an attempt to trace the possible source of infection. A 50-year-old male relative of the victim was later confirmed to have contracted the virus. Chen added, although he was not showing any symptoms. Taiwan's confirmed cases now stands at 20. Nearly 1,000 Taiwanese are still awaiting repatriation in Hubei province, the epicenter of the outbreak, after Beijing and Taipei accused each other of political manipulation causing delays. Taiwan did fly 247 people from Hubei's capital Wuhan on mainland-owned China Eastern Airlines flight on the 3rd of February. But how that evacuation was carried out caused disagreements. The relationship between the two is complicated by the fact that Beijing views Taiwanese people as its own citizens, not as foreign nationals.
Armed robbers who stole hundreds of toilet rolls were being hunted by Hong Kong police on Monday in a city racked by shortages caused by the coronavirus panic buying. Take a look. Now, police say a truck driver was held up by 3 knife-wielding men outside a supermarket in Mong Kok. Now, toilet rolls have become hot property since the COVID-19 outbreak. Authorities have blamed false online rumors for the panic buying, and they say supplies of household goods remain stable.
Japan said Monday it would cancel a public gathering to celebrate the birthday of new Emperor Naruhito as fears grow over the spread of the new coronavirus in the country. The Imperial Household Agency said in a statement, in light of various situations, we have decided to cancel the visit by the general public to the palace for His Majesty's birthday. The government has warned people to avoid crowds and non-essential gatherings. NHK reported that the number of coronavirus cases in Japan has now reached over 500, with the health minister saying the country has entered a new phase of the epidemic. The birthday gathering on February 23 was cancelled as local media reported that the amateur section of the Tokyo Marathon, scheduled for March 1, would be cancelled. The birthday celebration for Emperor Naruhito was to be the first since he took the throne last year.
A man died after falling into a river on Sunday as Storm Dennis swept across Britain, with the army drafted in to help deal with heavy flooding and high winds. Now, police said the man fell into the River Tau in South Wales. The storm also battered much of France, with some 60,000 people suffering power cuts in the northwest of the country and rail traffic disrupted. Britain's government weather agency issued a rare red warning for South Wales, saying there was a risk of significant impacts from flooding. That included danger to life from fast-flowing water, extensive flooding to property, and road closures. Police said in a tweet the man who fell into the river was later found dead further along the river in the Tebanus area. A record 594 flood warnings and alerts were in place on Sunday, extending from Scotland's River Tweed to Cornwall in southwest England. Winds of over 90 miles per hour were recorded in Aberdaron, South Wales. Roads and railways were badly affected by the downpours and winds, having barely recovered from a similar storm last week. The Defense Ministry deployed troops in West Yorkshire, northern England, which suffered badly from flooding caused by last weekend's storm Ciara. British Airways and EasyJet confirmed they had grounded flights, with footage posted online showing a massive Airbus A380 jet being blown about as it attempted to land. Now, earlier, 2 bodies were pulled from rough seas off the South England coast on Saturday as the storm barreled in. One of the men is assumed to have been the subject of a search triggered when an LPG tanker reported that one of its crew was unaccounted for. France was also affected by the storm, especially northwestern Brittany, where the Finistère and Morbihan regions were temporarily placed on orange alert for rain and flooding, according to the National Weather Service, Matteo France. Electricity provider Enedis said it had deployed 450 staff to restore power to 30,000 homes in Brittany. Power cuts also hit parts of northern and central France. The storm interrupted 2 high-speed TGV train services, one stopped by a fallen tree and the other by a power failure, according to the national rail company SNCF. By Sunday evening, Matteo France said the worst seemed to have passed as winds dropped to below 100 kilometers per hour. Several neighboring countries were also affected.
A massacre in an Anglophone region of Cameroon left up to 22 villagers dead, including 14 children, the UN said Sunday, with an opposition party blaming the killings on the army. A local official of Humanitarian Coordination Agency, OCHA, James Noonan, said armed men carried out the bloodshed on Friday in the village of Natumbo in the northwest region. Up to 22 civilians were killed, including a pregnant woman and several children, Noonan said, adding that 14 children, including 9 under age 5, were among the dead. 11 of the children were girls. Separatists in the regions have been fighting the central government for 3 years. The 3-year conflict between Anglophone forces seeking to break away from French-speaking Cameroon has claimed more than 3,000 lives and forced more than 700,000 people to flee their homes.
Meanwhile, gunmen have killed 24 people and wounded 18 in an attack on a Protestant church in a village in northern Burkina Faso, according to the regional governor on Monday. Colonel Salvo Cabore said in a statement that a group of armed terrorists burst into the village of Pansé in Yaga province and attacked the peaceful local population after having identified them and separated them from non-residents. The assault occurred on Sunday during a weekly service, according to security officials. One of the poorest countries in the world, Burkina Faso is on the front line of a jihadist insurgency advancing in the Sahel. Since 2015, around 750 people have been killed in Burkina and around 600,000 people have fled their homes. Churches have become frequent targets in the north of the country.
Italian far-right leader Matteo Salvii is to stand trial on charges of illegally detaining migrants at sea after senators voted Wednesday to strip him of his parliamentary immunity. A court in Sicily recommended that former Interior Minister Salvini stand trial for blocking migrants from disembarking from a Coast Guard boat last July. But ministers cannot be tried for actions taken while in office unless their parliamentary immunity is revoked. The Senate voted 152-76 in favor of removing the legal protection that had shielded the chief of the anti-immigrant League Party, giving magistrates the go-ahead to charge him with abuse of power and illegal detention. A former deputy premier faces up to 15 years in jail if found guilty. A conviction could also bar him from political office. Salvini refused to allow 116 rescued migrants to leave the Gregoretti Coast Guard boat, where they had been languishing for about a week in insalubrious conditions until a deal was reached with other European states to host them. A Catania court accused him of abuse of power in blocking them on board from July 27 to July 31 last year and of illegally detaining them. Salvini insists the decision had the backing of the government and Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
When visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. of the species that you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back. The IMF had said the coronavirus epidemic could damage global economic growth this year, but a sharp and rapid economic rebound could follow. Take a look.
It is too early to say because we don't yet quite know what is the nature of this virus. We don't know how quickly China would be able to contain it. We don't know whether it would spread to the rest of the world. What we do know, however, is that yes, indeed, it is going to affect global value chains, already affecting some. It is affecting tourism. It is affecting travel. As a result of the reduction of trade tensions, with the Phase 1 agreement signed between US and China, we actually have been predicting some improvement for 2020 in the projections for China. It is true, China today is a much bigger share of the world economy than during SARS. During SARS, 8%. Today, 19%. So if things go bad for China, this is not good news for the rest of the world. But they're working very hard to contain the epidemics. They have poured $115 billion equivalent liquidity so they can perk up the economy.
In its January update to the World Economic Outlook, the IMF lowered global economic growth forecast in 2020 by a 0.1 percentage point to 3.3% following a 2.9% growth the previous year, the lowest in a decade. Now, Ms. Georgieva said it was too early to assess the full impact of the epidemic, but she acknowledged that it had already affected sectors such as tourism and transportation.
Asia is facing billions of dollars in losses from a collapse in Chinese tourism since the outbreak of the deadly new coronavirus. Tour guides, mall workers, and restaurant staff are all feeling the burn as Chinese, the world's biggest travelers, stay at home in the middle of a global health crisis. Here's more.
แล้วก็อาจจะลงมาใหม่ก็ว่า ยังไม่รู้นะคะว่าจะเป็นยังไง
差了很多很多，本来一天可以跑个3000多块钱，现在一天呢，我从早上到现在才跑了700多，一天差了有2000多块钱。
Organizers of China's biggest car show announced the event was the latest to be postponed due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, COVID-19. More than 70,000 people have been infected by the epidemic, which started in central Hubei province and has spread across China. The outbreak has claimed 1,770 lives and prompted the closure of many schools, entertainment venues, and large-scale events. The Beijing Auto Show, which is held every 2 years, attracted 820,000 people in 2018 from 14 different countries and regions. Now, this year's event was due to take place between April 21 and 30. Organizers said the event would be canceled to do a good job of epidemic prevention and control and to protect the physical health of exhibitors and visitors. It's the latest in a series of events that have fallen victim to the spread of the virus, both in China and overseas. The Chinese Grand Prix, scheduled for April 19, was also postponed last week because of the continued spread of the deadly coronavirus, motorsports governing body FIFA or FIA said.
General Motors announced Monday it would scrap struggling Australian car brand Holden, with engineering, design and sales operations to be wound down in the coming months. The more than 150-year-old company created Australia's first local mass-produced vehicle and was a dominant brand in the country for decades, becoming a cultural touchstone down under. In 2017, it followed Ford and Toyota in moving production offshore, marking the end of car manufacturing in the country. GM Senior Vice President of International Operations, Julian Blissett, said about 600 people would lose their jobs in the coming months as a result of ending the brand in Australia and New Zealand. Blissett said GM had come to the realization that it was unable to make the significant investment required for Holden to be competitive and profitable in the long term.
In other business news, Asian plane makers have thrown huge sums at building jets, but flagship projects have suffered repeated setbacks, and they face a tough time breaking into a market dominated by established players. Take a look. The Asia-Pacific region is the world's biggest aviation market for commercial aircraft, and Japanese and Chinese firms have embarked on programs to build their own planes. Mitsubishi Aircraft Corporation was showing off a mock-up of the interior of its space jet, the first version of which was originally due for commercial rollout in 2013. After repeated delays, Japanese carrier All Nippon Airways had finally been due to receive the first of the SpaceJet M90 aircraft in the middle of this year. But the model suffered its sixth delay this month, with the first delivery now expected next year at the earliest. The setbacks, due mainly to technical glitches, have raised the development cost for the plane to an estimated 800 billion yen or $7.3 billion US dollars.
Building and starting from scratch an all-new aircraft is a monumental task. This is why there's very few OEMs in the world that develop commercial aircraft. It's been a journey of identifying overcoming challenges, identifying where we needed to make improvements, but we're here. We're finally got a certifiable aircraft, and now we also have a clear path to certification, which we've not had before. So we feel very good and very strong about where we're at in the process, and we are really at the place where we're crossing the finish line of a very long race. Again, it's very, very difficult for an OEM manufacturer to build an aircraft that can compete with established OEMs. Boeing and Airbus, obviously Boeing has been around over 100 years, Airbus over 50 years. It's taking them a long time to achieve the global and world status they have. Jets. Mitsubishi is committed to the regional sector, so we can optimize our aircraft for regional air travel, and we're not interested in competing with Boeing on the large airplanes or Airbus. We see ourselves meeting a vital market segment that has really been ignored for too long. Nobody can touch the Japanese when it comes to the quality of the products that would come out of the manufacturing facilities. So all of our airline customers can't wait, and I can go through dozens of conversations I've had with different airlines. They say this: we cannot wait for a Japanese airplane to enter the marketplace.
The United States ambassador to Germany said that President Donald Trump had threatened to cut off intelligence sharing with countries that dealt with Chinese tech firm Huawei. Ambassador Richard Grenell said Trump instructed me to make clear that any nation who chooses to use an untrustworthy 5G vendor will jeopardize our ability to share intelligence and information at the highest level. Washington has been pressing allies to ban Huawei, one of the world's largest tech firms, from next-generation 5G mobile data networks, saying it is a security risk. Key U.S. allies in Europe, notably Britain and France, have said they will not ban Huawei from building 5G networks, but will impose restrictions. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the Munich Security Conference on Saturday that Huawei was a Trojan horse for Chinese intelligence. The tech company vehemently denies the U.S. allegations, and Beijing has characterized its treatment as economic bullying. A U.S. indictment on Friday laid more criminal charges against Huawei related to theft of intellectual property, adding to earlier allegations that the company stole trade secrets from American carrier T-Mobile.
Meanwhile, top U.S. officials fired a fresh broadside at Huawei on Saturday morning. The Chinese tech giant posed a threat to NATO if allies allowed it to build new 5G communications networks. Here's U.S. Defense Chief Mark Esper.
My remarks. If we don't understand the threat and we don't do something about it, at the end of the day, it could compromise what is the most successful military alliance in history, NATO.
However, the head of Chinese diplomacy, Wang Yi, welcomes the approach of European countries on the implementation of Huawei in 5G networks.
当然，维护每个国家的信息基础设施的安全，这都是毫无异议的事情。但同时，要为所有企业都提供一个公平的竞争的平台，提供一个非歧视的营商环境，这才是公正的，这才是符合市场规律的。我们相信，每一个欧洲国家都会独立自主地做出 明智的选择。谢谢。
The U.S. administration has had mixed results in persuading allies to steer clear of Huawei for 5G networks. France announced Thursday it would not bow to American pressure to exclude Huawei from supplying equipment for its 5G networks, though the Chinese firm could be subject to restrictions. Last month, the EU and UK both released guidelines saying that governments should avoid dependence on high-risk suppliers of 5G equipment when building their next-generation mobile networks, but stopped short of banning any one vendor outright.
"5G stands for fifth generation, the latest generation of cellular mobile communications that offers vastly higher speeds and could unlock a variety of new applications." Here's more.
5G, or fifth-generation mobile network technology, represents a technological revolution and is likely to have a significant impact on our lifestyles, propelling us into the era of connected objects. While 4G is based on the use of longer airwaves, 5G uses millimeter waves, super high frequencies in theory capable of multiplying the speed by 20. The result, no more buffering while watching a video, as downloading a gigaoctet file will take just a few seconds, as against several minutes with 4G. The great promise of 5G is the virtual disappearance of latency. That's the delay between the sending and receiving of information. This will make possible the development of e-health, smart cities, in many fields, refuse collection, for example, increased use of autonomous and connected vehicles, and the digitization of factories. 5G will result in an explosion in data generation, and so data security will be a hot topic, especially as the architecture of the 5G network is more difficult to protect than its predecessor. Millimeter waves are short, they have limited range and penetration. The network will require very many transmitters that will target each user thanks to special cells which can track his or her every move. To experience 5G, routers or a 5G-compatible smartphone will be required.
More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan. Ang MTRCB.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN Channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
We are living during the most extraordinary time in human history.
All transport will go fully electric.
Es wird eine völlig neue Mobilität geben, meine Damen und Herren.
Rev, the new auto show on DW. Getting you into gear on cutting-edge developments.
Wasserstofferzeugung braucht Energie.
We focus on green technology.
Das Auto ist im Betrieb absolut emissionsfrei.
And also feature head-to-heads. And the latest launches.
Das Fahrgefühl war gut, er lässt sich sehr gut fahren, er liegt sehr gut auf der Straße.
And mobility stories from around the world.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
accurate and fair reporting. Not only from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi, but also abroad. Detailed and timely stories relevant to people all over the world. Catch all of these at Net25, your reliable source of news, entertainment, and technology updates.
U.S. President Donald Trump took the Beast, his heavily armored Cadillac limousine, for a lumbering lap of honor around the Daytona racetrack on Sunday in front of tens of thousands of cheering fans. President Trump, who is gearing up for a re-election battle in November, was the ceremonial starter of the NASCAR Daytona 500 race, issuing the traditional order, "Gentlemen, start your engines." The president's motorcade then led the field of 40 race cars on the parade lap of the revered course, a first for a U.S. president, according to NASCAR officials. President Trump thanked the tens of thousands of patriots gathered at the Daytona International Speedway in Florida, describing the race as pure American glory. The Beast is a popular name for the U.S. president's specially designed ED car. The current model is reported to weigh about 10 tons and have bomb-proof windows 5 inches, or that's 13 centimeters thick. Florida is a key state in the election, and Trump has already been campaigning hard to persuade voters to return him to office in the November vote.
In other sports news, Kawhi Leonard stole the show on the floor, and Hall of Famer Magic Johnson took center stage in an emotional pregame ceremony on the night the NBA paid tribute to the late Kobe Bryant. Let's listen in.
We come and we go. For all.
First-time All-Stars on hand tonight.
Chicago's favorite son, Anthony Davis, sank one of 2 free throws to cap a thrilling fourth quarter and lift Team LeBron to a 157-155 win over Team Giannis in Sunday's 2020 NBA All-Star Game. Leonard finished with 30 points and 7 rebounds and was awarded the new Kobe Bryant MVP award. The trophy was named after the former Los Angeles Laker, who perished along with his daughter Gigi and 7 others in a horrific helicopter crash 3 weeks ago. The guys were taking charges and running back playing defense, said Leonard of the highly competitive All-Star Game, which contrasted sharply with Friday's benign Rising Stars game that deteriorated into a slam-dunking contest. The league also honored Kobe Bryant by having Team Giannis wear his number 24 and Team LeBron wear his basketball-playing daughter's number 2. Team LeBron earned $400,000 in prize money, which they donated to the Chicagoland Youth Charity Chicago. Giannis Antetokounmpo finished with 25 points and 11 rebounds to lead Team Giannis, who kept the game close right up until the nail-biting finish.
From 3.
During the EBC Films workshop, Make It Real, this past weekend, Those in attendance got a special treat when a famous, well-respected TV and movie actor visited them at our main studio here in Quezon City. Here's Alfred Acenas with the report.
It's an honor, first of all. But the thing is, I'm here because it's my way of, as I've mentioned before, it's my way of giving back. At least for the past 25 years that I was able to receive recognitions, etc., from the industry. For me, it's time to give back.
On day 2 of the filmmaking workshop Make It Real, sponsored by EBC Films and held at the EBC main studio in Quezon City, Philippines, event organizers and attendees took the opportunity to duly recognize veteran Philippine actor Richard Kwan for his decades of success and contributions to the film industry. A certificate of recognition was presented and signed by EBC Films Head of Operations Robert Capistrano, along with EBC President Rowena de la Fuente de Moy.
The best job in the world is directing. Imagine you create a world na hindi nag-exist talaga minsan, di ba? So, imagine yung pwede mong impluwensyahan sa pamamagitan ng opera mo sa director. So, it's the best job in the world. Good luck sa inyo lahat. It's important that the director gives clear instructions sa actor niya. But then, at the end of the day kasi, yung actor lang makikita sa opera mo. So it has to be clear for us actors, ano yung gusto mangyari ng director. If you can do that, I think with a good actor, with a clear direction as director, I think 50% or 60% ng trabaho ng director, done, tapos na.
Given his 26 years as a professional actor, Richard shared some words of advice to those aspiring for a future in the field of entertainment.
Start with the workshop. I don't know if other countries or have this particular course that's being offered para sa particular like acting or ano. But if you have that, go for it. Learn as much possible sa things that you want to pursue. Kasi if you're given the opportunity, the chance na you're not ready, I mean, it's just turn out into a waste, di ba? So dapat be ready, and so that when that opportunity comes, you can take advantage of it.
When asked about his views and reactions on the many changes within the Philippine film industry, here's what Richard had to say.
Before, it's so hard to penetrate the industry because there are only few avenue to do that. There are only a number of producers producing. But now that there's more opportunity for you to enter the industry. There's this reality shows. There are social medias, diba? So those are the changes. But compared before, it's so hard to maintain. To maintain your stature sa industry. Ngayon, they come and go. So you have to be very disciplined, very passionate in what you do. Kasi anybody can replace you kung ano man yung napundar mo sa industry.
How do you keep yourself motivated and inspired to keep going in the industry yourself?
Motivation for me comes in a different way, different scenario. Like for instance, I can be motivated by just working to this certain director, to a good character, to good script, to a good co-actor. It would be a fortunate parang situation for me if all those combined is present at a certain project, diba? Good director, good actor, etc. So I think those are the motivations na nakukuha ko, pinanggagalingan ng motivation ko.
And what's next for Richard Kwan? The veteran actor expressed optimism about his future in the industry.
A lot is in the horizon right now. I'm doing digital platform project. I'm gonna starting a movie na under Cinemalaya. So it's a good character with a good actor. good co-actors, and some TV usually. Yeah, the usual stuff.
Reporting from Quezon City, Philippines, this is Alfred Asenas, Eagle News, always one with 25.
Thanks, Alfred, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Alfred. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr, check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.